Good day everyone, so we're group 2 and I am Gianna Rambi de los Reyes and we're going to tackle about El Filibusterismo.
Learning objectives. El Filibusterismo. Identify important characters like Simon, Ibarra, Isagani, and Basilio, understanding their rules and symbolism. Number 2, distinguish the character development, narrative arcs, and thematic shifts between Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo. Number 3, analyze the significance of youth in advocating for societal development, education, and freedom, as depicted in the novel. Writing and publication history. Jose Rizal penned El Filibusterismo between October 1887 and March 1891, undergoing revisions across various European cities. On 1887 to March 1891, financial hardships led to fragile living in Jant, with Valentin Ventura providing crucial aid for its printing. These struggles reflect how deeply personal and risky writing the novel was for Rizal. Context of threats and oppression. Penn admits severe threats and suffering faced by Rizal's family, dedicated to the martyred priest Gomborza, symbolizing resistance against oppression. Martyr priest Gomborza and Rizal family suffering. This context explains the more serious, almost pessimistic tone of El Filibusterismo. It is a novel born out of collective pain and a cry for justice. The impact of Noli Me Tangere. As a sequel to Noli Me Tangere, its intensified criticism against Spanish colonial rule, carrying forward themes of Filipino oppression. Calamba, A Grecian Crowball. Both novels ignited the flames of revolution, serving as powerful instruments for social and political change. Noli focuses on social cancer, exposing corrupt friars and injustice and inequality. El Filibusterismo intensifies the call of change, oppression, and pushing the idea of radical resistance. This contrast shows Rizal growing frustration with colonial abuses and his understanding that passive reform was no longer enough.
Example analysis is Isagani's dual identity. Isaganis as presented in El Filibusterismo serve as a powerful symbol of the conflicted, educated Filipino youth of the late 19th century. He embodies a striking duality. On one hand, he is the youthful idealist and poet who is deeply proud of the country, believing in a pace, progress, through education and alignment. This is evidenced by in the leadership in establishing a Spanish language academy. On the other hand, the next note, his involvement in revelatory activities and his willingness to challenge this existing colonial system, placing him in direct conflict with colonial authority that contrasts highlight a central tragic tension of the novel. The failure of the idealistic faith and the mounting temptation toward the violent faith, when the peaceful means are continually prospered by the representative government. Isagani's character therefore ultimately symbolize the resistance against governance born from crash, hope, and unfulfilled nationalism aspiration. Thank you so much.
Premises of El Filibusterismo, underlying societal issues, refers to the systematic and pervasive control exerted by the Spanish colonial government over the Philippines. Filipinos were often treated as second-class citizens, denied equal rights, and subjected to various forms of abuse by those in power. Struggle for freedom. The desire for freedom and independence was a central theme in El Filibusterismo. Many Filipinos yearned for complete independence from Spain, believing that this was the only way to achieve true self-determination and progress. Rizal and other Filipino intellectuals sought to define a unique national identity that would unite the diverse peoples of the Philippines and provide foundation for a sovereign nation. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Carl Mesa and I'm going to discuss to you the characters and imaginaries of Simon. For Simon's identity and transformation, first one is the alter ego of Crisostomo Ibarra from Noli Me Tangere. After being betrayed and losing his loved ones, Ibarra returned as a completely changed man, and he returned after 13 years as a wealthy jewelry, and his new status gives him influence in colonial society, known as Black Eminence or Cardinal Mario. These titles highlight his mysterious, manipulative persona, and dresses like an Englishman with blue tinted glasses. His disguise symbolizes his hidden agenda and emotional coldness. And for symbolism and representation, Simon is not a giant. Represents violent, radical, revolutionary ideas. So, unlike in No Limit Tangere where he taught reform, he now believes only a distraction to rebuild society. And he symbolized how noble intentions can be corrupted by oppressions. His desire for justice has been twisted into vengeful interism and embodies societal despair and the call of strategic change. Simon represents a society pushed to the edge of injustice. And for the motivations of vengeance, first is that he driven by personal loss and society injustice. The death and betrayal he experienced fueled his transformation. And I think kanina naman ata. And for the characteristic elements of Basho, for Basho is orphaned and fled San Diego after his tragic family tragedy, and he taken in educated by Captain Tiago, and he became a medical student in Manila, showing his ambition and perseverance, embodies and resilience through learning, and he represented hope through education at least at first. And for here experience injustice, professionally marked by tragedy and oppression. First is loss his mother Sisa and brother Cripson to colonial abuses. Forced into labor under Captain Tiago, and he witnessed system corruption and power abuse, and unjustly imprisoned, which pushed him into despair. So these events shape his moral struggles and eventual anger towards the system. And lastly, the rule in Simon Sims. Basho initially believes in education as a peaceful pathway to change the rejection revolution. But his unjust imprisonment changed him, making him more open and violent resistance. Eventually, he became entangled in Simon revolutionary plot, showing how impression corrupts even hopeful youth. And overall, this Simon symbolized broken ideas. For Simons, symbolized broken ideas, radicalization, and destructive response of impression. And for Basilio, symbolized the youth struggle, hope through education, and eventually disillusionment. That's all.
Characteristic and imaginaries of Isakani. Who is Isakani? He is the young student, poet, and passionate idealist, nephew of Padre Florentino, deeply proud of his country. and optimistic about its future. Isakani embodies the youthful hope for reform and progress for Filipinos through education and enlightenment. Idealism and nationalism of Isagani. He loves his country and believes in a better future. And his advocacy for education and reform. First is leader in establishing Spanish language academy. Believes education is key to enlightenment. Seeks progress through learning and reforms. Conflict with colonial authority. He joins activities against abusive colonial rulers. And for the example is imagine a student who joins school organization to promote Filipino culture and fights for student rights. He believes that learning and speaking up can change society. That's like Isagani. Character and imageries of Maria Clara. Maria Clara symbolized the ideal Filipina during Spanish time. Kind, pure, and gentle. Her life is full of suffering because of strict colonial tradition. Symbol of purity and suffering. Maria Clara is seen as the perfect and innocent Filipina, but also suffer because society expects her to be obedient. Tragic fate. Maria Clara's life ends sadly because she feels trapped and hopeless. For the example, think of someone who always tries to be good and follow the rules, but end up suffering because society is unfair. Her sad experience inspire another person to fight against injustice. That is Maria Clara's rule.
Cabias Nantails, the opposite farmers who transform into the bandit leader Matanglawin after losing his land and family. Julie, daughter of the Cabias Nantails, finance of Basilo, she becomes a tragic victim of circumstance and abuse. Pulsido Peninente, the legend student who becomes disobliged by the oppressive education system and abused by peers. Capitan Tiago and Don Custodio. Capitan Tiago, greatly influenced by colonial power. Don Custodio, self-serving incidency. John Rizal, Dolomitang Hire, and El Filibusterismo are similar works that critically examine the Spanish colonial rule in the Philippines, as they share profound connection in their characteristic settings and overacting. Explanation. Dolomitang Hire and El Filibusterismo are similar works that examine the Spanish colonial rule in the Philippines.
Aliwati from ESOE2C, and I am going to report about the semblance of Elfeli and Noli differences. Noli Metangheri 1887, which means touch me not. Ideology advocating for gradual reforms and social awakening. The tone romantic, hopeful, and satirical. Approach peaceful through exposure of abuses and education. Focus critical social ills, religious hypocrisy, and calls for justice. Then the next one is the El Filibusterismo in 1891. Ideology radicalized disillusionment, which reforms effectiveness, tone the darker, somber, more satirical. And the difference between the two is the two novels of Dr. Jose Rizal serve as powerful mirrors of Philippine society during the Spanish colonial era. but they all differ greatly in agility, tone, approach, and focus. Noli Me Tangere in 1887 presents a gentler, more hopeful call for reform. It highlights social injustices through stories filled with romance, idealism, and satirical criticism. The novel encourages peaceful transformation by exposing abuses in education, religion, and governance. Its atmosphere aims to awaken the Filipinos' desire for justice without directly promoting violent resistance. On the other hand, El Filibusterismo in 1891 represents Rizal's more radical and delusioned perspective. He shifts from optimism to a darker and more urgent tone, influenced by his frustration with Spain's refusal to implement reforms. The novel centers around revolution, political corruption, greed, and the consequences of oppression. Simon's revolutionary plot reveals that meaningful change may require more than peaceful pleas. This evolution from hopeful reform to revolutionary contribution reflects the transformation of Rizal's own ideology. Rizal, after El Filibusterismo, continued struggle for reforms, moved more conventional approach, promoted the Liga Pilipina, advocate for national unity through writings. After publishing El Feli, Rizal did not abandon his desire to uplift the Filipino people. Instead, he became more assertive in his fight for reform. He remained committed to enlightening Filipinos through his writing and even organized La Liga Filipina, an association aimed at uniting Filipinos and promoting peaceful social change. Though still wrote in reform, his approach grew more confrontational as he realized that Spain was unwilling to address long-standing injustice. Challenges to peaceful struggle: El Feli constitution necessity. Challenges to the idea of peaceful struggle. El Filibusterismo itself questions whether peaceful means could still achieve meaningful progress. The novel suggests that peaceful efforts were increasingly unrealistic because the Spanish colonial system repeatedly ignored Filipino appeals. As a result, Rizal and many Filipinos faced the painful realization that peaceful reform may not be enough. This shift contributed to the rising revolutionary sentiment among Filipinos, pushing many to consider more drastic methods of resistance. Legacy and impact of his words. Symbol of hope for Filipino youth. Okay. Legacy of the Impact Results works. Both novels significantly shape Filipino nationalism. They awake national consciousness by exposing the cruelty of colonial rule and the hypocrisy of religious and political institutions. Rizal's portrayal of suffering, injustice, and corruption inspired Filipinos to seek freedom and equality. His writings powerful symbols of hope and unity, fueling the desire for new liberation. Even after his death, the novels continue to serve as catalysts for the revolution and remain essential foundation of the Philippine identity.
So in conclusion, first, critic of colonialism and injustice. Rizal exposes the corruption, greed, and abuse of power committed by Spanish authorities and pharaohs. The novel reveals how ordinary Filipinos suffered under an oppressive system that favored only the privileged. Second, Rizal's stance on revelation. The story shows Rizal's exploration of whether violent revolution or peaceful reform is the better path to change. Through its characters, the novel presents the dangers, consequences, and moral questions behind choosing force or diplomacy. Third, role of the youth. Rizal highlights the potential of young Filipinos to lead the nation toward progress. However, he also portrays their frustration, their dreams often blocked by corruption and societal limitations. Fourth, symbolism and character Archetypes. Many characters serve as symbols representing different aspects of Philippine society: idealism, corruption, justice, and oppression. These archetypes help readers understand the deeper meaning behind social issues Rizal criticizes. And lastly, legacy of national identity. El Filibusterismo plays an important role in shaping Filipino identity and nationalism. It awakened Filipinos to fight for dignity, rights, and independence, motivating future generation to continue the struggles for freedom. So that's all, and again, we are group 2.